What's the story, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone else? It is time for another preview on the channel, and now it is time to look towards this weekend's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship action. There's plenty of big games on this weekend, round 2 of both the Leinster and Munster round robin. Of course, we are here to break down both the Leinster and Munster round robin championship games. Some big matches actually happening this weekend. You've got Cork going up against Waterford. Can Waterford, I suppose, carry on what was wasn't a good performance against Limerick, but the fact they came so close to beating them will have given them some sort of confidence, even though they didn't play particularly well. And Cork, on the other hand side, at home in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, massive chance to get the 2 points. And elsewhere, it is, the mother of all derbies in hurling at the minute, Limerick versus Clare. And what an opportunity for Limerick to possibly put a big nail in the coffin that is Clare, because it would be 2 defeats in a row for Clare. Limerick will be looking closer towards a Munster final, whereas Clare will be searching for that third place spot at absolute best and possibly heading towards the exit door. Galway versus Kilkenny is a game that usually lives on through the ages, and it certainly made headlines last year for more than one reason, but this year it will all be about the hurling on the pitch, so very excited to look ahead to that game as well. And of course, a big match for Dublin as well after a very disappointing performance really against Antrim. You would expect the Dubs to put things right this weekend versus Westmeath. And elsewhere, big match between Wexford and Antrim. Can Antrim carry on what was a very good performance against Dublin and possibly go on and seal what would be a famous win away to Wexford? So plenty to break down, plenty to discuss. Let's get into it. So let's start with, I think we could call the main event of the weekend, in my opinion, in terms of the Hurling Championship. And actually, I think the main event of the weekend in terms of the GAA. Look, I mean, when Limerick and Clare have played each other in the last couple of seasons, it has been explosive, if anything. It's been titanic, it's been excellent, it's been outrageously brilliant when these two have played each other, and you wouldn't expect anything different this time around in the Gaelic grounds, of course. Limerick coming in on the back of that victory versus Waterford, where, look, they had to dig deep. They were down to 14 men for, a good chunk of that second half. It was a game where, especially in the second half, they struggled really to get going. Clare, on the other hand side, I mean, like, the defensive errors from obviously Eamon Footy in goal very much did cost them. Like, there's no point going any other way against Tipperary. As I said before, I think Tipperary played very well, but I think it was more so Clare actually shooting themselves in their own foot. And Clare actually did quite well to get themselves back into the game on a couple of occasions. So although Clare lost the game, they will look at those sort of errors as probably what actually cost them those early 3 goals. And saying that, with Clare, look, they did score 3-23 against Tipperary, which, in any other season, any other game would probably be enough to get the victory. It's mad, like, Limerick are sitting with 2 points on the board, and Clare are sitting with 0 points on the board, but Limerick scored 1 goal and 18 points in their opening match. Clare scored 3 goals and 23 points. So it is kind of mad sometimes how the championship can work, but I suppose for Clare, as I said, attacking wise, they were absolutely brilliant. I mean, Aidan McCarthy coming back into the side, scoring 1 goal and 13 points. Massive it is to have him back, having obviously missed him last year. Mark Rogers, 2 very well taken goals from him as well. And of course, we know how good of a player that Tony Kelly can be. Only scored 1 point, which was, a little bit surprising against Tipperary, but when he gets going, he can be absolutely phenomenal, in fairness. So there's a lot for Limerick to think about, but in fairness to Limerick, like, when they have played Clare, and even from speaking to Limerick fans in some preview shows and everything else, and sort of gauging the general interest around Limerick hurling, or the sort of feel around Limerick hurling, is that, when they come up against the likes of Clare, Tipperary, Galway, they never focus on one individual player. They never really focus too much on the opposition, and they more so focus on themselves. And that's why Tony Kelly has often had great games against Limerick, because he hasn't been double marked. There hasn't been a sweeper in and around him. There hasn't been a huge emphasis placed on stopping him. It's been more so Limerick focusing on their strengths and what they're actually good at. And you'd have to say up until now, it's worked very well. And the fact that Limerick did not look at their best versus Waterford, like, the fact that they came through the game with a victory, the fact that you had John Coyley obviously coming out after the game saying, everything else, like, speaking, that the fact that the media are creating this sort of sensation around Limerick, the fact that the All-Ireland is won maybe before the ball is even pucked. I think the result, the performance, the result was obviously what they wanted, but the performance was not good enough from a Limerick perspective, and the fact they still came out with the win, I think only serves Limerick right, because look, they're going to be bang up for this. They have to be, because if they play the same way they played against Waterford that they do against Clare, they'll get beat. They will get beat. Clare will be far more ruthless in this game than what Waterford were. And like, you look at Waterford's forwards, the likes of Desi Hutchinson, Austin Gleeson, even Stephen Bennett at times, all misfired at times in that match. Can you see Aidan McCarthy, Mark Rogers, Tony Kelly, Ian Galvin, these lads, Peter Duggan, like, misfiring against Limerick? I do not think so. So that's why I think the performance, with combined with the result, was almost perfect for John Kiley and Limerick, because they're going to create a bit of a siege mentality going into this match. And the fact that they did perform as poorly as they did means that they can only get better, really. And like, the thing about Limerick as well is, like, they obviously started very strong. I mean, Shamie Flanagan got that goal in the first half. Aaron Gallan was impressive enough, scoring 7 points on the day. But you would expect Limerick to come flying out of traps, with it being in the Gaelic grounds as well. I think having the home advantage here is crucial, because if this was in Ennis, you would think maybe there might be a bit of jeopardy here from a Limerick perspective. But like, at the same time, at home, I think that is going to be so crucial for them. I expect Shamie Flanagan and Grode Hegarty to have big games in this one, just with the fact that all the media hype, or I suppose the media concentration, was around them last week following the red card incidents. I expect them to actually go out and have a very, very good game indeed. So, I'm going to go for a Limerick to win by 5 points. I think when you look at it from a Clare perspective, if they're conceding 5 goals and 22 points to Tipperary, what could they concede to Limerick? And as I said, I know there was plenty of goalkeeping errors there, obviously, as we said, with Eamon Footy. Be interested to know from a Clare fan perspective, like, what do Clare fans think? Do you keep him in goal? Do you bring in someone like Eibhear Quilligan, bring him back in? It'll be interesting to know, like, what the Clare fans think in the comments down below. But I just think Limerick are going to be, roiled up following what happened against Waterford, following some of the takes in the media around Hegarty and everything else. I think they're going to come out absolutely all guns blazing. And I think from a Clare perspective, it's not good enough Vienna. We've seen last year when Cork lost 2 games, they came back and won 2 and got through. So it's not the end of the world from a Clare perspective. One thing you would say from a Clare perspective, though, is it's important they don't get hammered in this game, because score difference, it could come down to score difference. It really, really could. So I'm going to go with a 6-point win for Limerick. As I said, I think they'll go all guns blazing. Be very hard for Clare to withstand that. And as I said, I expect Tony Kelly to have a great game, but he usually does have a great game against Limerick. And to be fair, it usually doesn't matter. Another massive match, obviously, in Munster, as we were saying, Cork going up against Waterford. And as I said in my All-Ireland Hurling predictions video, it's very hard to know where to know with Cork. Like, I feel like Cork are that type of team that they could go out and absolutely hammer Waterford, but at the same time, they could easily go out and get absolutely trashed themselves. Like, you never really know what you're going to get with Cork at the best of times. And obviously, they would have sat on the couch last week watching the games. They will know a little bit more as to what Waterford will bring to the table. And Cork, when we know, get going with their attack, they can be absolutely deadly. Jack O'Connor's obviously come back into the side this year. Padraig Powers look very decent as well. Obviously, a new younger player sort of coming up from the under-20s in the last couple of seasons. So, like, Cork at home, especially with it being in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I don't think the game will suit Waterford. I could see Cork opening up Waterford, to be honest with you, and I could see them probably getting 3, maybe 4 goals in this game. And I think it would be tough for Waterford to contain Cork. Like, I think, like, on the flip side, we were talking about how Limerick, didn't play well against Waterford, but still came out with a win. I felt like Waterford put so much into the game against Limerick. They did so much right. It was just the shooting that let them down. And I think, like, it's more of a worry when you play really well and lose than when you play poorly and win. Do you know what I mean? Because at least when you play poorly and win, you can take learnings, you can take where it went wrong, and you still have the result to obviously improve on, go into the next game. Whereas Waterford done so much right but came out with nothing, and they put so much into it, it worries me that it might deflate them ever so slightly. So I think Cork's attack will be far too much to handle from a Waterford perspective. Look, I think if you can get Desi Hutchinson more into the game, obviously Austin Gleeson didn't start or wasn't supposed to be involved in the game versus Limerick. He was in the end. No Tadhg de Burke is going to be an absolute massive loss from a Waterford perspective. And as we were saying, a bit like Clare, it's not good enough Vienna if Waterford lose this match, but they will still have to play Tipperary and Clare, which look, will be two tough games, and possibly the next match against Clare will be a bit of a decider really as to who actually stays in contention for the round robin. But I'm going to go with Cork at home to win by 4 points. I think they will be too strong. I know there has been a flatness associated with Cork at times, but I think the long break from that league final, the fact they would have seen where Waterford went wrong at times last week, and I fancy Cork at home in Páirc Uí Chaoimh to get the win. You've got Kilkenny versus Galway in Nolan Park. Obviously, this game was made famous last year by the infamous handshake between Brian Cody and Henry Shefflin, and you could imagine Henry Shefflin and Derek Ling will be handshaking quite early on, putting that all to bed. Be interested if there is any sort of dispute there, which obviously there won't be, but because I'd imagine Derek Ling and Henry Shefflin are on good terms, but you just never know nowadays, do you? In fairness, and look, Henry Shefflin will be bringing his Galway side to Nolan Park, looking to upset the party, looking to spoil the party, and look, it's a massive game for either of these two, and it's one of those games that it's not sort of as consequential as what it is in Munster. Either side could lose this game, and you'd probably still imagine both, possibly still have enough to get into the Leinster final. Other than like Limerick Clare, I think will be going hammer and tongs right from the minute the ball is thrown in. Whereas with Galway and Kilkenny, there probably will be a slight element of shadow boxing ever so slightly. Obviously, TJ Reid came back into the side versus Westmeath. He scored 9 points, obviously, on the day. Billy Drennan's obviously was ruled out with an injury. Be interesting to see if he comes back in. You look at John Donnelly, Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody. Look, I think Kilkenny, in terms of their squad, is very, very strong. And I'm still not entirely convinced with Galway. I wasn't hugely impressed with them throughout the league. And although they did, come from behind and beat Wexford, I thought Wexford were just very, very flat. So there's still a lot of unknowns about Galway. I still think they're a side that has the potential to kick on. And, with Brian Concannon, Evan Nyland, Conor Whelan, some experienced lads like Joseph Cooney, Daithí Burke obviously in, playing at either cornerback or fullback. They have a lot of very, very... Obviously, he was playing at centre-back the last day, but they have a lot of very good sort of experienced players there. And, there is pressure on Henry Shefflin to deliver. Whereas with Derek Ling, with it being his first season, there's always pressure in Kilkenny, but maybe there isn't as much pressure as, previous seasons, for example. So ultimately, I'm going to go for Kilkenny to get the victory. I think they will be too strong. I think they are just that bit ahead of Galway at this moment in time. It's not to say that Galway can't turn it around and go on and win the Leinster Championship, because they definitely have the potential to do so. But I think for this individual game, I think Kilkenny, they just have way too many options that they can hurt Galway. And when you look at how Wexford opened up Galway at times in that opening stages of the game, Kilkenny will be far more ruthless, in my opinion. And Kilkenny won't let off, I don't think, like the way Wexford did at times in Chadwick's Wexford Park. So, yeah, I'm going to go for Kilkenny to win the game by 2 points. Think it'll be very close. Could go down to goals, although sometimes when these two have played each other in the last couple of seasons, there's been a lack of goals. But I'm going to go for Kilkenny to win by 2 points. Wexford versus Antrim and Dublin versus Westmeath are the last two games to discuss in the Leinster Championship. In terms of Dublin-Westmeath, I mean, look, if Dublin don't win this game, then I would start to question where we are going as a county in terms of hurling. Obviously, very disappointing draw away to Antrim. I would have expected us to offer a lot more and win that game. But at the same time, going away to Corrigan Park, tough game. Micheál Donoghue's first season. It's hard to really know what to expect from Dublin, so far. But obviously, with the game being at home, you would expect Dublin to kick on and surely win this game quite comfortably. Score difference, as we know, could be vital if it does come down to that. So Dublin have to go out and win this, and have to go out and win it convincingly, in my opinion. Obviously, Donald Burke's been brilliant for the last couple of years. He scored 1-9 versus Antrim. Keane O'Sullivan was actually very impressive that day as well, scoring 6 points. But you are looking at some of the other younger lads who've sort of made the breakthrough in the last couple of seasons. Alex Considine, Dara Gray. We just can't seem to get the best out of Ronan Hayes as well, which is quite frustrating because he's looked very good for Kilmacud Crokes in the last couple of years. So it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And Westmeath, it was tough for them to get going against Kilkenny. I mean, only scoring 7 points on the day, just 4 different scores. Kieran Doyle obviously getting on the score sheet that day. So it's been tough for Westmeath. It has been tough for them. But I would imagine Dublin being at home should be a bit too strong, in my opinion, and should have enough to win by 7 or 8. As I said, if we fail to win this game, it's not I don't mean to be disrespectful to Westmeath, but I think a county like us, with the resources that we have, the manager that we have, and the underage players that we have had making the breakthrough in the last couple of years, we should be winning this game quite comfortably. So I'll go with Dublin to win by 8 points, and if we don't win this, I think I'll be very disappointed come full time, whenever that is. Wexford versus Antrim is obviously the last game to discuss from the Leinster Championship. And look, as I was saying before, look, you have to commend Antrim. Like, as much as you criticise Dublin for their performance, like, you have to commend Antrim. And look, I mean, maybe Antrim are a lot better than what we expected. I mean, obviously we've seen, some of the club success in the last couple of seasons, and obviously a lot of the players in the Antrim side would have played in an All-Ireland club final against Ballyhale Shamrocks, a game that wasn't actually, it was comfortable enough for Ballyhale, but it probably wasn't maybe as comfortable as what we would have expected. Conal Cunning's been outstanding, 9 points from him against the Dubs. Gerard Walsh looked very good as well when he was on the frees. Obviously Connor Johnston got himself the goal. Keelan Malloy's been a mainstay for Antrim the last couple of seasons. So look, it won't be easy for them going away to Wexford Park, but you certainly would give them a strong chance. And on the basis of how they performed against Dublin, who knows, maybe they can pull off the upset here. I am going to go for Wexford to bounce back though. Like, I think in a similar way to Dublin, like obviously flat enough in the game against Galway going down the home stretch. Will Lee Chin be back for this one? You'd imagine he probably will be. It's a must-win game for Wexford, because if they don't win this, then you could probably start waving goodbye to any hopes of getting out of the round robin, to be perfectly honest. It's going to be very, very tough. So yeah, I think Lee Mogue McGovern, it was a well-taken goal from him, obviously against Galway. Conor McDonald, always a very impressive player when he gets going as well. So I'll go with Wexford to get the victory. I'm going to say by 6 points, but again, be very curious to see how Antrim get on in this one. Who will be your player of the week and your bet of the weekend? I think player of the week, I mean, I'm going to go for Adrian Mullen, actually, to have a very good game against Galway. Obviously back in the side now, played last week against Westmeath. So I'm going to go with him to have a very big game against Westmeath and do the business and be the player of the weekend. And then in terms of bet of the weekend, there probably isn't really... would you bet on Clare to beat Limerick? Probably not. Maybe Waterford could pull off an upset against Cork. Antrim, maybe to do so. I just don't really think there's any games there really that you'd say you get a good price on, to be honest with you. Cork to beat Waterford, I suppose. Yeah, Cork to beat Waterford quite comfortably, maybe by 7 or 8. I'd go as the bet of the week. But yeah, player of the week, we will go for Adrian Mullen. So yeah, we'll wrap this up here. Cheers to anyone who tuned in. Let me know your opinions, your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously, we will start doing more previews with guests and everything else. Sometimes it can just be difficult to find the time in the evenings with a full-time job trying to cover football, hurling. See you all later. Like, subscribe. See you soon.